Welcome to episode 76 of the Amani Experience podcast. For this show, we will do part 2 of our series, The Best of the Amani Experience podcast, where I share some of my favorite clips from guests from our first 74 episodes. Now, to reach me, you can email me podcast@amaniexperience.com. We also started a Patreon, which is like a virtual tip jar. So if you feel like donating any amount of money to the podcast, could be $1, $2, $5, $10, $200. Go to the website, amaniexperience.com/podcast. You'll see a link there on the front description. You can click there and donate to the podcast, and we will recognize you. And depending on what level you choose, we'll be happy to honor you. So thank you very much. Let's get to the show. Our first clip comes from Carissa Woo. She talks about money issues, knowing your worth, and how she tells people that she's on a budget too when they ask for a discount. So I really love this clip. It's funny, but it's very true. I appreciate Carissa being open and honest about her feelings. Let's take a listen.
Let's see, 21, I was out of college working. I think I would say yes, you could hustle, but you should be more intentional about what type of clients you want to work with. You should be more intentional about, the style of weddings and the vendors that you want to collab with or network with, not just, take anything, because it hurts you in the end if you just do everything. And I think, after hiring some mentors and money coaches, I've learned not to discount, not even to feed into that energy. Everyone asks for a discount before they even talk to you, and they say, "Oh, I'm on a budget," and I say, "Well, I'm on a budget too." Everyone's on a budget.
I'm gonna try that. I'm on a budget too.
I'm like, I hope your budget's $10,000. But I just don't like to feed into that energy and make sure they respect me and respect my work to the point where they're not even asking for a discount. So that took a lot of, training, and kind of going back into my past to, when I was raised. I never really was educated on finances, or I never really knew what enough was. I never learned how to budget. So it's just pretty much chase that money. But, now I'm not perfect at all, but I'm kind of learning that you have to have a plan and a budget and see what's going in and what's going out, and just being more aware. And a lot of entrepreneurs and people struggle with the same thing, and some people will go through life never understanding money. So it's a very important topic that I think schooling and college, they don't really talk about.
That was from episode 7, Carissa Woo. I love what she shared. I love her perspective on that. So take a listen to the full episode if you like. Next up, we'll go to episode 30, Kate Wright. She talks about just loving your people, finding your crew, and loving them hard is one of my favorite quotes from her episode. Let's see what she has to say about just loving your people.
There's something to be said to give back. So just love your people, do it in the smallest way possible, but just always have them know that what they contribute to you makes you a big person of a big part of who you are. And I would have to say going through what I went through last year, where I kind of cleared out this stuff that wasn't feeding me, that wasn't giving me any kind of joy. I really kind of learned who those people are, and it's just been amazing. 2017 was kind of crappy, but also pretty cool at the same time. So I'm excited to see what 2018 brings.
2018 was a great year for Kate, so she put it out in the universe and it happened. So props to you. Well done, Kate. Next up, we have Molly McCauley, and we're going to go to episode 25. She talks about 2 things: why it shouldn't be easy and how she deals with the comparison trap. Let's take a listen.
Well, it's like anything, right? Right when you get uncomfortable, on that edge of that really scary decision, usually comes something really great.
Yes.
So keeping that in mind, and trust me, that's a reminder I need to set for myself every so often.
We all need reminders.
But yeah, so I think just that mentality of knowing as soon as it shouldn't be easy. It should be simple, but it's not easy, it should be, it it should be like interesting and still exciting, and like you should be challenging yourself, in my opinion. So as soon as I get on the edge of like feeling super uncomfortable, I know that I'm kind of doing something right. I would reach out to the people that they're comparing themselves to.
Okay.
So the people who I reach out to are people who I either like admire or I'm intimidated by. There are a number of photographers who I've become friends with now because I have admired their work, and I'm like, half the time it's like, hey, do you want to meet for coffee? And it's like, can we just like talk about things? And a lot of times it'll be perceived from my end as that they're definitely ahead of the game in me. But when you sit down and do like have that conversation, it's like they'll compliment me on things, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I am good at that, you know? So it's like, it's a little bit, it's reassuring, but it also is like the biggest way that I feel like I've had growth is I'm also not a shy person.
Yes.
I'll talk
not.
To anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
That's really good advice.
It's the hardest question, but honestly, people are flattered. Like if people, you know, and do something, approach them in a way that it might be like beneficial, like, or ask if they can be like a mentor, or like, hey, can I shadow you or assist you or do something like, you know, like that. Like sometimes coffee isn't enough of an incentive for someone to give an afternoon to somebody, but like follow them, like engage with them on social media, like make your presence known so that when you do reach out to them, it's not like a blind cold call.
Right.
Yeah.
Great advice. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
That was great advice from Molly, and I encourage anyone who's listening to put her advice into practice because it does work. We're going to head over to episode 68 now, continuing with the not going the easy route theme. Charlie Jordan Brookins talks to us about her thoughts on don't go the easy route.
I think the first thing is that don't go the easy route. Really understand the process. Don't just go for the result. I would say believe you are all God says you are, and believe it early.
Nice. Yeah.
I would say don't stay in a job longer than you feel it's right just because. Don't rest on I need just the dollar, or don't rest on I don't want to make people sad, or if you're ready to move. And I would say you're going to be all right.
Yeah. Excellent advice. Yeah. That's really good advice. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
The one lesson in life that took me the longest to learn, you know, I would say it is that faith piece. You know, it is everything is going to be okay, because just that piece of advice that I said, don't stay in a job too long.
Right.
I think most of my jobs, I leaned on comfort and fear too much, and probably could have moved faster. I trust that everything happens for a reason, so my trajectory was what it was supposed to be. But at the same time, really trusting and believing what your call is, and that a way will be made for it.
Love Charlie's advice right there. Definitely check out her full episode. We're going to go and continue on to episode 39, Peter Nelson. And he talks about, as a writer, sometimes you just have to kind of do the work. So he talks about chopping the wood, and let's hear his perspective on that concept.
It's a cliche, but for a reason. It's chop the wood. Like, you have to do the work. I mean, it's, you know, there's so many, you know, it's a little different if you're talking about writing books or writing for, you know, Hollywood or whatever. But, you know, in the film and TV side, there's so much, you know, networking and moving around and pitching and stuff that you feel like you just got to ride that wave. But at the end of the day, you can take a million meetings. You got to go home and write the thing. Mm-hmm. You got to write the thing. And yeah, then you have to get out and sell it and, you know, try to promote it because there's such a glut of other people doing it. But that's what you have to do. And then the other side of it is the networking. And again, it goes hand in hand. You got to be good at both. I am not. I don't like networking. I don't like pitching. I'm one of those guys who, I mean, I've always kind of been able to crack people up. So people tell me, oh, you should be a stand-up comic or go down here. And, you know, my buddies again in Massachusetts,
Right.
oh, hey, it's Hollywood. What are you doing in Hollywood? How's it going out there? But, you know, I just, it's flattering when people think I should be doing that, but it's not me. I don't, you know, do it. The one thing I got away with doing was on some of our animated stuff for Comedy Central. We were low budget when we did the first one, and we were coming in late. And I could expand on the story, but basically the producer was like, this idea you guys have for an animated half hour is really funny. We tried to pitch it to Adult Swim, it didn't go. And this producer was like, you know, I have this show on Comedy Central called Trip Tank.
Yes.
And it's just a series of 2-minute shorts. Take the pitch, can you guys do one of these? We'll put you on the season. And we're like, great. He's like, okay, the bad news is there's 12 other people who are going to be on the same show with you because they're little 2-minute cut-ups. And it's big-time directors. It's all good, you know, it's really an interesting concept. They've had a year to do theirs. You have 30 days. So we were like, we can do this. We got it. So, and we got it. And because of that, I got to kind of do some voice characters on it. And that scratched my itch of my performing because no one could see me. I was in a little studio like this with the headphones on, and it worked out. But I guess that's kind of, to get back all the way back, is you have to kind of shuck and jive a little and like work on your stuff, get as good as it can be, but then have that pitch to it as well. Even with books, you have to pitch a book series to a publisher. You have to give them a synopsis, a query letter. You have to maybe sometimes write the first 5 chapters just on spec, which is a lot of writing. Yeah. And you're hoping someone gets it. And you have to get in a room too and really talk about it. And so I guess the advice would be, don't let either one of those outshadow the other, because you got to do them both, and you got to do them both well.
Shout out to Peter for that advice. Thank you very much, Peter. That's great advice. Definitely listen and think about that on a daily basis. Now we're going to head to episode 24, Veronica Torres, V Torres, the same V Torres who I did the Artist Way exercise with. That was life-changing. So she is going to talk to us about like her mission statement, everything is temporary, and then thoughts on competition. So let's hear what V Torres has to say about that.
Okay, I have 2 things.
Okay.
So first
allow that.
is one sentence that has been a mantra beyond for me for the last year and a half has been, everything is temporary. Uh-huh. Obviously, a lot of yoga practice goes into this, but it applies everywhere. The good, the bad, everything is temporary, and you got to practice that detachment from situations that bring you pain. So that's one thing. And then I actually have like a mission statement for myself.
Good, share.
Which is not one sentence, but so mine is, you have been blessed with gifts. It is your purpose to share those gifts with the world. You are here to inspire others through music, words, good deeds, and art. Start focusing on your purpose, set goals, and knock them out, inspiring others along the way. I think this goes back to something I mentioned earlier, but I think you have to really be honest and true and only put out what you really believe in. Because if you're putting out things that you don't really believe in, they're never going to come across like correct. And I also think, before when I was in the band, I would get really jealous of like other people's success, which I think is pretty immature. But now I just really support everyone I know's success, and I'm truly happy for them and like want to collaborate more with them or share them with others. And I think that whole competition thing is just something that kind of has to be thrown out the door, especially when you're doing something creatively. Because what you said, I forgot what you said earlier, but when we were doing before the podcast.
Right, before the show.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
If you want to go somewhere fast, do it alone.
That's right. Yeah. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And I think, that's why now I don't really see it like, I know there's competition, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on, here's what I do. I might not be your cup of tea because you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah. There's a good interview out there that Tim Ferriss did with Terry Crews. I'll send it to you. He talks about competition. It's a really unique perspective that's good because we all suffer from the comparison trap, and that can be brutal what did you do? Because it's hard to get over. Like, how have you been able to get over it? Because, like, me, I still struggle. So help me. Like, how did you get over that?
Oh, man, I know. I would focus on, there'd be 20 positive comments. I'd focus on the one negative one before, on your
How dare they?
Exactly. I mean, I think it all comes together with just being secure and, like, understanding that it doesn't matter, letting those things kind of roll off. And I kind of attribute this to my yoga practice too, is the practice of non-reactivity. How do you respond to things, and what does that say about your character? So if you're totally responding to all the negative energy, that's what you're going to build again. And maybe this is basic, but I kind of let those things go now. And I sometimes laugh about it. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that's true, whatever. But I kind of just practice that, like, non-reactivity towards those situations.
Yes, Veronica, yes. I so appreciate you. Thanks for dropping some knowledge on us. We're going to head to episode 38 now. Katie Nesbitt, and she's going to talk to us about saying no and trusting. And the funny thing about this episode is I was able to get in contact with one of Katie's old diving coaches, and so to read a message from him that surprised her, that was really cool in this episode. So check that whole interview out, and let's see what Katie has to say. Now, I'm going to read a quote that you've said and written down, and I want you to kind of explain why it resonated with you. You say, on the way to making your dreams a reality, one of your greatest tools will be the word no. Why does that resonate with you?
Saying no is one of my hardest things. A lot of people notice about me, and that is something I am still working on, and it's going to be a lifelong lesson for me. I've kind of accepted that. I am somebody that says yes a lot. I pile more on my plate than I probably should, but it's because there's a lot of things I want to do. There are a lot of people I want to see. There's a lot in my life that I love and that lights me up. But it can get depleting if I don't put myself first. So I've had a lot of people, give me a lot of advice around that, and saying yes to myself instead of saying no to others has actually really helped me a lot. There's somebody that I'm close with that kind of shared that with me, and I've taken that with me really over this last year. But saying no is something that I need to learn more of, and that I need to continue with that. So I'll write things like that because I need it. That's the thing, is things that I speak about in class or things that I might post about, those are things I'm working on in myself. I'm not somebody that has it all figured out yet, but I think I know a lot of the steps, but it takes a lot of practice and creating those new habits and those new mindsets.
We're happy you said yes to the interview.
Me too.
For the record.
Thank you.
But we can help you with that, say yes to you more and no to other people. So we're going to help you with that.
Thank you.
Now, when you turned 21, you were in Sydney, or were you back in Boston?
I was in Boston.
Okay, so we're going to travel back in time to 21-year-old Katie.
Oh, no.
And we're going to give yourself some advice. What advice would you give yourself?
Trust. Really, I'm always going to come back to that. I know it. I have it tattooed on me now in Sanskrit. It's something that, and I actually have it tattooed on my foot for a reason, because I tend to look down a lot in life, especially when I'm not trusting in something, or I just instantly kind of turn in, look down, being afraid, being uncertain. And so I have it written there so that when I look down, I remember, trust, Katie, and look back up and keep looking forward. So I would say to that girl, gosh, that 21-year-old, I think some people out there can laugh with me about that one. But hey, she was having fun, and she was living life, and she was trying to figure it out, with putting probably a little too much pressure on herself to figure it out.
The whole trust, tattoo on the foot, looking down, seeing the tattoo, looking up, like I'm sensing a book coming, but I digress for a moment. But Katie, we'll keep talking about that. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Next, we got episode 31. Cachita Hynes is going to talk to us about why your worth is not what someone tells you it is.
I would say, it's hard because I wouldn't say I have a lot of critics per se. But I can tell you that in the past, when you think of who are the people that criticize you, I can take constructive criticism from somebody. And I really actually appreciate that. I think it's always good to learn about what you can improve on. It can be hard to hear, but it is good to know. But I would say, as someone who has worked at some really big companies and amazing places and some not so amazing places, is I'd say maybe some of my bosses, right? Like, so I've worked for a boss at a company that she was racist. I've worked for a woman that was verbally abusive and then once actually physically abused a peer. And one of the things I learned is your worth is not what someone tells you it is. And I was actually bullied by a boss once who she, quite honestly, I don't know if she just, I think, was jealous of the way I looked and the way I would dress to work, which was very professional. And what I will tell you though is that I always knew my worth was beyond what those people thought of me. I knew that my value and my contribution and my future didn't depend on them. And I think that's a hard thing when you're younger and even when you're really deep in your career, is that sometimes we feel like someone above us or can decide what our fate is. Only you can decide what your fate is. And I do wish that I knew that at a younger age.
Any advice to maybe some younger people that maybe are going through something similar that you would kind of advise them to do to kind of get out of that situation?
I would say, because the Midwest mentality, you're kind of taught to stay at a job. You need to stay there a year, or a year would be nothing in the Midwest. It'd be, you have to stay there 6 years, and then you can move to a new job. That is absolutely false. I do not recommend jumping from job to job to job. But if you are in a position where someone is either verbally, physically, or just truly mentally being inappropriate with you. I had a woman, she was screaming obscenities at me, then grabbed a tissue box and put it in front of me. Now, mind you, I was not crying, but she made it very clear, I'm trying to make you cry. And I waited till she was done calmly. And then I grabbed the tissue box, I put it right back in front of her calmly. And I just said, I will never need that here. But what I will say is that you don't have to scream. You don't have to yell. You don't have to be rude. And you never need to wish ill upon someone else. But I think it's to remember that there's always another opportunity, and you can make that opportunity. You can find that opportunity. If you're in a job that you are not happy with, then I would say get out. You can make your future. Get out and network, make the time, take some time to wrap up that LinkedIn account, make it look nice, and remember that there is support out there for you. And that there are other people who have been in your shoes and will have your back. And truly, I would say it goes back to be the kind of boss, like no matter what position you are in, be the kind of boss, like act like the kind of boss you would want. And I think a lot of people will get into positions of power and haze other people because that's how they were treated. So it's just remembering that, be the kind of person you want to work with. So if you are that person, I like I said, back to like some of the young people that I mentor, I tell them, there will be a time. It's almost, I could put $1 million on it right now. There will be a time in your career where you're at a job and you will either have nightmares about the job, the climate that you're working in. You will have anxiety that is unbelievable. And you may be put in situations that are not okay, and but you have to be your own voice and to stand up and walk away. Now, I will say my parents always also said never leave a job without a job, because that is true. It's much easier to find a job when you have a job. Yes. But yeah, that's just one little nibble of advice.
Very passionate. Love it. As you can see and hear from that clip, Cachita is very passionate about this subject, and she's lived it more ways than one, so I appreciate her sharing that with us. We are going to continue on. Alejandro Montoya Marin from episode 53 talks to us about why a heartbreak is the fuel for future projects.
There's always moments, right? And they say it the best way. I think Abre los Ojos, the Spanish film that later turned into Vanilla Sky, said it. It's you gotta, it's bad, but you got to appreciate the bitter to then appreciate the sweet.
Amen.
You know what I mean? Because it's true. Like, when you're in the slumps, that's when you have friends and you have family. And they're the ones that help you out. And yeah, it might feel like it's like nothing's possible to break out of that, and it's gonna just continue to get darker. But my sister said it with an album name, to be precise. This is how my family's music. I'm not kidding around. She understood, I was very much in love, and she was like, "Look, Alejandro, we've been doing this for a couple of months. I get it. It's sad, but it doesn't sound like you want to wake up. You just want to bitter in your sorrow and just bury yourself." And she said, "And if you don't wake up, it's the same thing the name of the Nine Inch Nails album you love. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
The more you don't want to wake up, you keep digging a hole and go. She's like, where you're at, wake up, keep climbing. It gets better. It totally gets better." So, what did I do? I listened. I got to work. Remember, I forgot who says a breakup or a heartbreak is fuel for future projects.
This is true.
Use that to your advantage, right?
And you use that
Get consumed.
Yeah, to write The Princess.
The musician.
Oh yeah, I have to check that out.
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
I think you'll like it.
I'm going to take Alejandro's advice in using heartbreak as I start my new songwriting career. So keep out for that, putting that out there in the universe. Also got to give a shout out and thank you to Alejandro for visiting my class at Cal State Fullerton and speaking to the students. They really enjoyed it. So I appreciate you making the time to come down while you were in town and talking to us. Thank you very much. Now we're going to kind of continue with the love theme. We're going to talk to Cristina Morara, my matchmaker, and she's going to talk to us about, is what you want always what you need? So let's hear what she has to say.
I think that a lot of times people come in and they say, well, here's what I need, and here's what and I want this, and I want that in a person, and he or she has to have this and this and that. And as we get to know them, we sort of start to discover that a lot of times what they say they want is not in complete alignment with who they are and what they need to be the best person, what they need to feel secure, what they need to feel adored. It's not in alignment. So that's kind of where we come in, where we help people define that or refine it. Your list is great, but if it's not in alignment with what you fundamentally need as a person, then it's useless. It's just like when people say, well, my type is, I'm usually attracted to this type of person, and you like to say, well, forget it, because that type has not been working for you, which is why we're sitting here. So why don't you let go of a little bit of your ideal and make room for something or someone to surprise the heck out of you. So it's a little bit of that mindset. Please don't give up. There's always someone for everyone. There really is. So much of it has to do with timing, but also you have to change something. You really do. I think people have to say yes more. People who've given up are generally, they stay in. They've thrown in the towel, but you're just going to perpetuate that if you don't make a move. So I think just being a little bit more open, just connecting with people. I mean, again, that's why we're here, is to connect. So the more you can create opportunities to connect with other people and do things that you love, you will send out a signal to the universe and to other people that you are open and you're trying to get your groove on. And I think that that's attractive to people, especially when you're giving that green light.
I love hearing Cristina give out just advice on love and relationships. She's so wise. So if you want to hear the whole interview, go check out episode 26. That's where we talk to Cristina. More love advice. Had a great chat with Damona Hoffman, who talked to us about what's more important than the person that you're with, as well as keeping your commitments. Also got to give a shout out to Damona for talking to my class at Cal State Fullerton. That was awesome. She shared some great wisdom and advice. So thank you as well. And let's hear what she has to say. And Damona gets it done for sure. Check out her full interview, episode 58. We have come to our final clip for this episode. It is from Amaris Davidson, episode 73. And she talks to us about how perfection is not real. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll come back with another part of this series in the future. Thank you very much for listening. Let's get to our final clip.
Calm down, girl. My goodness. Everything is going to be okay. That's what I would tell her. Like, perfection is not real. And life is so much more beautiful when you just enjoy it. Like, it's one thing to say you enjoy the journey, but it's a whole other thing to be present and in the moment. And I would tell her, like, life is going to be okay. You're about to embark on a journey that you couldn't even dream. And it's going to be amazing. So enjoy each moment while it lasts.
For people who are struggling to enjoy the journey, they're always worried about what's next.
Yeah.
What advice would you share with them to maybe get them to take a step back and to kind of relax a little and calm down?
Calm down. I think I just had this conversation yesterday with someone at church, and gratitude automatically draws you back to the moment that you're in. It doesn't allow you to go forward or to go backward, but it allows you to just be thankful for the moment that you're in. And something that I always say, as a believer, when you feel stressed out and you've put yourself in the future, most of the time you don't take God with you. You're there by yourself. That's why it's so stressful. So if you're going to go to the future, make sure that you take him with you and know that you're not going to be doing it alone. That's what I would say. I think recognizing that there is no competition. There are people that are in your field, obviously, but working on yourself and making yourself aware of even the things that they are doing, I think, is how you win at that game. When I walk into a room, there are going to be people that look exactly like me. They could be my sister. I've walked into a room and met a cousin. So I think the most important thing is to know that we are a part of a creative community, and you're not in competition with anyone. And I think that there are roles that are going to be for you, and there's some that just aren't going to be for you. And to try to hold on to something that is not yours is a waste of energy and a waste of time. And so take it as a learning lesson is what I would say. And I know I talk a lot about that. It's because it's how my mind works. And sometimes it can be hard to put your mind around that. But there's so much peace in knowing that I have done everything that I could possibly do to prepare for this role. And this was just not mine. But that means that what you just said no to opened up a door for you to say yes to something that is yours and that you're going to flourish in.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Feel free to email us at podcast@amaniexperience.com. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon for our next episode.